call to order the special called meeting of the Bristol, Virginia City Council today, Tuesday, December 6th, 2022. Please join us for a moment of silence. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, I do want to note that Becky Nave is on the phone, appearing by telephone today. She has a personal matter that's keeping her out of town.
Okay, thank you. So first we will look for a motion to adopt our agenda.
I move for adoption of the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
Nave,
yes,
Osborne,
Yes.
Wingard,
Yes.
Farnham.
Yes. The first item of our agenda is approval of award to SCS Field Services for Sidewall Odor Mitigation System, bid number SW23-010, and I don't believe we had anyone sign up for public comment for this item, did we? Okay.
Council, before we get started on item number one, I feel it's important that I give each of you all an update as to where we are on cost associated with the landfill, at least for fiscal year 23, and for what I anticipate in fiscal year 24 going forward, and potentially into 25 as well. At the moment, we have spent roughly $3.1 million that has been unbudgeted since July 1 of 2022 on landfill projects. Yesterday, I met with staff late yesterday afternoon in regards to the projects that remain to be accounted for. And we have 7 projects remaining. 2 of those projects are closure of 498 and closure of 588 landfills. In a lot of the numbers that you all have seen over the past few months and over the past year, we knew that closure is something that we would have to take into account at some point. And as we continue to work through this with DEQ, I anticipate that we will have to close 498 and 588 within the next year. We know that the costs associated with that, based on assurances that we have to give, I believe every other year, have been estimated. The estimated closure cost for 498 is roughly $6.5 million, and the estimated closure cost for 588 is $20 million. However, that is based on the assumption that you fill the landfill to the top and close it as it was originally designed. That closure cost could be more or less based on the current situation with the landfill. So currently, we have outstanding $54.7 million worth of projects left to complete associated with these landfills. So as we continue to move into expenditures, and out of that 54.7, you're going to approve hopefully 12 million of it today. There are a significant number of expenditures associated with this landfill. I said in the spring of 2018 that this landfill would cost the city more than the falls ever would. Unfortunately, I think we're there, and I think I've said that before. So we have to be cognizant as we move into the budget season, what this means for the city, what it means for the citizens, and this is no, I guess the best way to put it, all the easy things are gone that we have done for this city as far as budget goes. Now it's going to be some tough decisions we're going to have to be made coming forward this upcoming budget cycle. So let's move on into item number one. This is approval of SCS Field Services for the Sidewall Odor Mitigation System. As you know, this is something that has to be completed by June 14th of 2023 pursuant to a federal court order. And so we had the invitation for bids for the Sidewall Odor Mitigation System project was issued on November 7th, 2022, with proposals due at 2 p.m. on November 22nd, 2022. Due to limited interest in the project, the bid due date was extended to 2 p.m. on November 29th. One response was received. This bid was considered responsive. Therefore, it was recommended by the city manager, procurement specialist, and the public works director that bid SW23010 be awarded to SCS Field Services. The potential total bid received from SCS Field Services for completion of Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the project is $11.998 million. And I would recommend that City Council approve the award and give the city manager the authority to negotiate and enter into a contract with SCS Field Services for the sidewall odor mitigation system bid.
Okay. All right, thank you. What's the pleasure of the council?
I move for approval of the award to SCS Field Services for the sidewall odor mitigation system for bid SW 23010.
Second.
Is there any council discussion or questions?
Yeah, I've got some questions. I have concerns because for over a year, we was told, trust the engineers, they know what they're talking about. All the drilling and piping and everything we done up there, they swore up and down it was gonna stop the odor. It didn't. The sidewall mitigation, I have met with the old engineers and DSS and asked them, DSS, had they ever seen anything like this before? And this is new ground. Nobody's treaded in this water. This $12 million, I need to know, have they built a prototype of what they think is gonna fix this odor? And have they put it in the landfill and tested it?
The first $1 million of that will be for the prototype. It'll be 222 feet that will go along the western chimney to determine how effective it is. Regardless of the effectiveness of it, the sidewall odor mitigation system has to be complete by June 14th of 2023. We anticipate if this initial design is not effective, there'll be some tweaks to the model that they will implement throughout the rest of the.
I understand that we're in all these, under all these mandates and everything else, but like I just said, this is uncharted water here, and nobody knows exactly what's gonna happen here. And, you know, I don't know what the end result would be if we get to the end of this mandate cycle and this odor mitigation is not fixed. I don't know what the consequences would be of that. But to put a mandate on something that's never been done before, I just can't get my head wrapped around that. If this was something that was common and it was straightforward, I can see putting mandates on it. Now, this is all going to be trial and error. This is a $12 million proposal that we have before us today. And the odds are they're going to get up there and they're going to start with this prototype. And there's a very good chance they're going to find out that they got to make this adjustment, that adjustment, and do it this way and not that way. And this $12 million could easily turn into $18 to $20 million with change orders. And we need some kind of assurance with this kind of money that this project is going to work. We can't be sitting here on promises. We need solid ground that this is going to work. And two, my concern is on the payout. Is this going to be one check for $12 million, or are we going to do this in incremental payments and pay them by footage? Or how are we going to make payment on this?
It'll be in incremental payments.
It'll be incremental payments. So as the work proceeds, we'll write the checks.
That's right.
Okay, well, that's good to know. But this city has to be aware that there could very well be change orders coming down the pipeline. And this $50+ million that he just mentioned may not be enough. And we need to really put our heads together as a city and figure out how we're going to move forward without bankrupting this city. I have some real concerns about this. $12 million is a lot of money. And I was sitting thinking last night, you know, what is the footage of the rim of that landfill? Is it a mile?
4,800 feet.
So it's less than a mile. It's 3/4 of a mile, a little over. Little over 3/4 of a mile for $12 million. Now do the numbers on footage. That's a lot of money per foot. I mean, I know that we have to do this, but we need this engineering company, and we need everybody involved knowing that this city does not have an open checkbook. And that this work moving forward, and the end results of it, it has to work. And we cannot hear, oh, sorry, it didn't work after $12 million. But that's just my thoughts on it. I mean, we just got to really stress to this engineering company that whatever they come up with, it has got to work. Because we cannot afford to keep coming back and writing checks like this.
Well, I fully agree with you. And I think you're right. No one knows whether or not this is going to work. And I said in 2021 throughout the year that I didn't know what we were going to do, if what we were doing was going to work. Obviously, it didn't work. I don't know if what we're doing now is going to work. I've been assured by members of our engineering team and members of the expert panel that this should resolve the odor issues. But for $54.7 million plus ongoing maintenance associated with all these projects that we're implementing, I've got real concerns moving forward how we will continue to maintain these projects without being a tremendous financial burden on the citizens of the city of Bristol, Virginia. I've debated whether to say this in public or not, but I don't think there's a better time to do it than right now. There's only one clear solution to solve this landfill problem that we know that will not be an environmental impact on the citizens of the city of Bristol long term. And that would be to mine the entire landfill and take that waste somewhere else and do an absolute clean closure on 588. I've had people look into the potential costs associated with that type of project, and you're probably looking at $250 million. But I think with the costs that we're looking at right now that are really just estimates of this $54.7 million, it could be more, it could be less. And with the ongoing maintenance issues, it's just my opinion that a clean closure may be the best thing for this city. Now, question is, where do we come up with $250 million? I don't have an answer for that yet. I do have a 9:30 call today to start discussing some different options with some people. But I have an answer for the $54.7 million. It's not pretty. Council's not going to like it. I don't like it. And the citizens of the city of Bristol aren't going to like it. But I've got an answer. And you know, I've said it before at other budget cycles that, you know, it's going to be a tough budget season. I don't think the new council members or the council members that will remain after January 1 understand what a tough budget cycle we're getting ready to enter into.
Well, I'm going to say this. I've said it before. Elected officials that handle, and this is the people's money, the people is going to suffer the cost of this. And it is important, unbelievably important, and this is a prime example of why the voters should know what the people that they're voting for stands for. And when government says we're going to start a project, a job, and go into business, government has zero business being in the business. We could have brand-new schools everywhere with this kind of money. We could have our officers in brand-new cars annually with this kind of money. And when Bristol, Virginia citizens hear that 5 people want to pull another harebrained idea, they need to be storming the gates of this city hall, demanding them resign immediately. We're not supposed to give all of our money away, and we're not supposed to go into business and try to make money. We are to manage the people's money for the services that government is supposed to provide. This landfill is truly going to be the financial nail that buries us. And you know what? We have to move forward, regardless. We have to move forward. We're under mandates. We're under lawsuits. Our hands are tied. So whatever it costs is whatever it costs. But going forward, God help us with the 5 members that's on this council going forward. And the future councils that come behind us. Once this city is back on its feet, this city is going to see decades of struggling financially. It's just unbelievable. And that's all I have to say. I just can't believe we're sitting here in this situation.
So, I got a couple of questions. I guess the first kind of allude to something Councilman Wingard brought up about the potential for change orders, especially since this is one bid that includes the testing the first 200 feet, and then you do the rest. And if I'm correct, I think it's 25%. If you exceed 25% of a contract, you have to go out and rebid. So if you go over $3 million in change orders, if that's correct, which could easily do, then you'd have to put this back out to rebid.
Right.
At which point, that right there adds at least a month to the, we're under an extreme timeline.
That's right.
So discuss that a little bit. I mean, is there a contingency? I mean, what are you going to do, or what can you do to mitigate that risk?
Well, I think we've got a couple of options, and that will come into discussions with the contract. I haven't seen the contract yet from SCS. They've been working on preparing a contract, but, you know, one, I want this to be capped at 11.9 million. I can't guarantee that they will cap it at 11.9 million, but I think SCS, at least based on this number and based on estimates that we thought this project would cost, I think this is probably a little bit on the high end of the total project cost. But, you know, there is a possibility of change orders, and if it does exceed 25%, that's something we'll just have to unfortunately deal with at that time when it happens. But, you know, based on the timeline that we're currently on, we've roughly got 7 months to complete this project. We don't have too much time to waste. And I think SCS is very well aware of our time constraints.
And I mean, it's not just the cost. That's what worries me about change orders, because if you tip that threshold and you have to put this back out for rebid under the Virginia Public Procurement Act, then you've added a month to it, and I don't see how you meet the deadline.
Right.
Now, you ask
think
the
we have to
court for mercy at that point, because that's an unforeseen circumstance, but that's another risk. There's a lot of risk involved in getting this done.
Yeah, I think, you know, a lot of this is going to fall in the hands of the project manager to make sure that we're completing these tasks in a cost-effective way. And as we start approaching the $11 million mark, and even well before that, you know, we need to be having discussions with SCS, you know, that we're halfway through the project and we're at $8 million. Is $3 million or $4 million going to complete the project? Or do we need to start looking at different options, and we need to be ready to have this project out for rebid the moment we realize we could be over that 25% threshold?
Okay. So,
And we'd only have to be out for bid for 10 days.
yeah, but it's still.
Still-
I mean.
Still 10 days.
10 days,
Right.
and then to do it, and then to get council to approve. I mean, and that assumes you get a new
That assumes
bid.
you get another bid, that's right.
So, you know, I would think you're adding at least 3 weeks, and that's
Right.
under the best
That's the best
circumstance possible.
circumstances. Right.
Well, anyway, that's just something to keep in mind. My next question is, you're asking us for $12 million today. Of course, that's to approve the bid. Later, council will have to appropriate the funds. Where is that coming from?
$8.7 million of this will come from ARPA money. We still have $2 million from the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality that we're waiting to receive, so $2 million of it will come from ARPA, or, I'm sorry, from DEQ, from state funds, and then the remainder will probably have to come from beginning balance.
Okay.
We anticipate having a public hearing January 10th to appropriate these monies because it's going to be over a 1% threshold.
Okay. Well, I'll reiterate what Councilman Wingard said, what you said, some of your comments. I mean, this is a huge amount of money. I mean, you're talking an amount to solve the landfill that's more than 1 year's budget for the city of Bristol general fund. You know, I've looked at it. If your numbers are right, yeah, it can get done, but it is not going to be pretty.
Right.
And as Councilman Wingard said, at the end of the day, this landfill is going to impact everyone, either through the effects they've had, having to deal with the odors, or financially, or both. And I just wish those that follow us, I pray for guidance, because you're going to need it.
I agree with, you know, what Councilman Hartley and Councilman Wingard have said. This is, you know, it's an eye-bulging number. Will you restate, you were a little bit unclear, I thought, where the money's come from? 8.7 from ARPA, and where was the rest?
$2 million from DEQ,
So
and
we've not received the
remainder will come
DEQ,
from the
but
unassigned fund balance.
we've not received the DEQ money yet, but that's where we're accounting for $2 million of that.
That's correct.
Okay. So the 42.8 million outstanding for the rest of the projects, do you have a ballpark breakdown on what those projects are and what they cost?
I do. We have some costs associated with the cover and shaping of the landfill. We have that cost at $1 million. That may be right in the ballpark. We won't know until we start getting closer to the cover and shaping portion of the landfill, but I think that's a reasonable estimate. We still have the benzene removal project. That's probably going to be a $6.5 million project. We have the large diameter landfill gas well expansion. We've estimated $2.3 million. That's based upon the numbers that we had last year for the well expansion system. That number could be a little more, could be a little less. We just don't know that yet. That project will be out the bid here within, I think we'll have that bid out in the next 30 days, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, we have the odor mitigation system at $11.9 million. We have $6.5 million set as budgeted for the grading of the stormwater system and the management system that we'll have to do with the landfill as it sits, because it sits below grade right now. Closure of 498, $6.5 million. Closure of 588, $20 million. I would just caution you all that $20 million is based on closing the landfill as it was designed back in 1996 or 97. So we'll have to put it, SCS will be working on a new closure plan, and there'll be new cost estimates associated with that new closure plan.
Thank you.
those closure costs, is that to physically close it, or does that include all the post-closure care?
That's just to physically close it, does not include the post-closure care.
So there's going to be
Those will still be additional.
millions of dollars annually
That's right.
for maintenance and monitoring and.
Let me ask Becky.
Sure.
Becky, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to add on to some of the comments that were already made, and while I agree with all of that, just to say, it's unfortunate that we have to keep paying out so much money without a 100% guarantee that it's going to work, but we have to do it. We don't have a choice. And in order to keep the burden off our citizens, we just need to continue to ask and work with our state and federal officials like we're already doing and have been doing, but to let them know how important it is that they assist us with funding to fix this. That's all.
Thank you.
What is our current borrowing status?
We could currently borrow approximately $27 to $29 million. I met with Davenport last week, and I have another meeting with them this coming week.
Just a quick question about phase one of this, the beginning 200 or so feet. That's going to be happening pretty quickly, right? Are there?
Yes.
Do they have materials lined up already for that work?
I think they have the majority of the materials already lined up for that work.
Well, I just wanted to say, just to reiterate, what Mr. Wingard mentioned, 5 people sitting up here making decisions. Some big decisions were the creation of the landfill, the creation of the falls. That really changed the direction of the city a lot. I want to commend, you guys over here. You guys the two have been here the longest, and when you guys came in, it was a tough situation. After the falls was done, and you guys had to make some tough decisions. I think Archie was here. You guys actually raised taxes a little bit. And that was unpopular, but it really helped us get through a rough patch. But I'm sure, just like those times, there'll be some tough decisions to be made in the future, too. That'll be tough. And what Mr. Wingard had started with, we were listening to the experts talking about how, this is what we need, this is going to fix it. And, of course, it's not fixed yet. And I'll say, I don't want to talk about them publicly or bash anyone publicly, but we were listening to Draper Aiden, and, we were listening, and they did work on projects over there, and we were listening to others, and we decided to move on and make a change over there for a few reasons. But now we've got SCS and the expert panel, and Dr. Craig Benson here during the town hall was speaking about the importance of the sidewall odor mitigation system. So it is true. It's like a pilot program. It's not exactly been done before. They have fixed other smelly rock quarry landfills in other states. Bristol is unique. We're somewhat similar with those rock quarry landfills, but we definitely have some differences over there. So this is a big, important step, and that's according to the engineers, SCS and Dr. Benson, talking about the sidewall mitigation system. So all of it's been important, obviously, cover and ceasing, the waste going in there so they could work easier and quicker, the thermocouple installation, but this one's a big one, the sidewall odor mitigation system. So I'll be on the edge of my seat as they start that pilot program. And again, it has to be done. It's, something that we're all experiencing in our community still, and it's, it's either do it or don't do it. And we don't really have a choice. We have to do it. So
I will say this, and it may not be popular, but the reason why had to close this landfill was because of the odor. And then we got the leachate problem and all that. But if this, because we're looking at millions and millions of dollars on the closure and maintenance of the other 2 landfills. And this council has to look at every viable option to do government business without putting the burden completely on the taxpayers, if at all possible. The landfill's already a done deal. It's a beast. The reason why we shut it down is because of the odor and lawsuits from the odor. But it's my opinion. And I won't be here to make any decisions about it. But if this works and we eliminate these gases escaping from this landfill, this city council needs to relook at opening that landfill back up. Because we have lost $3+ million in revenues that we're absorbing because we have all the debt on it. Now, if we can't get a handle on this odor, this option's not even available. It's not on the table. But if we can get a handle back on that landfill, the city really needs to start talking about opening it back up because of the exorbitant costs of us taking our trash elsewhere, the exorbitant loss of revenue that came in from the landfill's operation, and we've got to get the right people in there that knows how to run, manage, and operate a landfill. The reason why we're here today is because it's a vast array of reasons why we're here today, but the right people's never in place. And the unfortunate thing about it is that's a decision that's going to have to be made fairly quick. So, because it's under my understanding that the landfill is closed for a year, it cannot reopen. Am I correct on that?
It's closed until we decide to reopen it. I think what we, right now, under the current regulations, we have to have this landfill completely closed relatively quickly, 1 year after we stopped accepting trash.
Is there an option to even open it back up within that year?
Well, I mean, I think there's always an option, but, and I'll tell you all and I'll tell the public this, I think any rock quarry landfill that I'm aware of that is previously closed and had odor issues prior to being completely full, they've eventually had to go back in and fill the landfill completely up and cap it as it was intended. I know that happened in Rockland, Maine. I think it happened at the Congress landfill out in Chicago as well. I can't remember the Bridgeton landfill. I can't remember if it was full or not. I think there was nuclear waste in that landfill, though, that was had a little bit different circumstance than what we have. You know, I think Dr. Benson told you all in February that the best way to solve this odor problem is to get trash in the landfill and close it as quickly as possible as it was intended. You know, obviously, I think the expert panel report did not explicitly say to close the landfill. What it said was to cease operations while you're doing this ongoing work. I think it's yet to be determined by the experts whether or not it should be completely closed or not. You know, I've said before, and Mr. Wingard, this goes to what you mentioned a little bit earlier, you know, government should do government types of activities, which is provide services to the citizens, and not to be venture capitalists and, you know, think that we can operate a landfill better than the private sector, or to operate a retail facility better than the private sector. I think it's going to be, you know, I think it's going to be a very tough choice for council at some point whether or not they want to reopen this landfill. You know, obviously it's associated with a federal lawsuit now. Two, citizens have probably lost faith in our ability to operate a landfill effectively. And if we would choose to open it, I would have it open. I would hope to go out and put this out to an RFP for private industry to come in and operate the landfill, simply because I think it's best left to private industry for people that have the technical expertise to operate a landfill the way it should be operated.
Well, I definitely agree with that. It needs to be operated in the private sector.
But I guess ultimately, you know, I think it's going to be a decision for council to make at some point in the future whether or not that landfill ever opens again. you know, the federal court order says cease accepting waste at the landfill. Now, there was not a time period on that federal court order, so I think it's probably be left up to attorneys in the future to argue whether or not that was permanent or temporary. But in my opinion, we need to go slowly before we decide to open a landfill again.
Absolutely, I agree with that. I'm just saying that if this system works and we correct all the wrongs that's up there right now, I just think that we need to revisit, should this city continue to keep it closed, or should we reopen it back up? Because it's a $3 million a year income to offset, and the bottom line is, the landfill will never be right until it's full and capped. It needs to be filled up and capped, because if it stays in its current form, it is always going to be a bowl that captures water, and we're going to deal with that forever. Until it has a dome on it and it is capped, it is going to be a burden, financial burden for this city. I'm not saying open it up. I'm saying it needs to be revisited if we can correct these problems. But if we cannot correct these problems, then that option's not available.
And I do think filling it up is an option, but maybe not with trash. Maybe it's filling it up with rock, filling it up with dirt, filling it up with some other kind of substance. So that's something I think that we do need to discuss in the future about with the engineers, you know.
I'll just add, personally, and I won't be here to make the decision, I'd never vote to open that back up again. It was a mistake to start with. It's lost, my calculation, easily $150 million, counting the debt, counting the ongoing annual losses, including almost $30 million we had to write off. It's a money pit. It just, why you'd even consider that, even if it was safe, just from a financial point of view, why you would consider that. And that's the one point when I was listening to y'all's discussion, nobody talked about the finances. I mean, yeah, you're losing $3 million in revenue, but it was losing money every year. We got pretty close to making it break even, but I don't think it ever broke even. So why in the world you would go back down that road? You know, I don't understand, but does it need to be filled all the way to the top? I don't know. I'm not an engineer. I'm not an expert. I don't even know the experts know. This is so unique. Mm-hmm. But that's another decision, and again, that adds to the cost, and, you know, you're pushing the city to its financial limits probably already, so even if you wanted to, you may not be able to unless the court or DEQ tells you to. And then you've got to figure out how to do it. So this is not an easy situation. It's not going to, hopefully this will make a difference, this part will be over. This is something, I've said it multiple times, I mean, this is going to take longer and cost more than anybody wants to see. And I think we're starting to realize, at least the cost more part, that this is going to be a very expensive undertaking.
Well, just to throw out there, just for the record, I'd vote to fill it up with rock or dirt or some other type of substance if the engineers, if the experts recommended, but I wouldn't vote to put any more trash in it. Just throw that out there. But as far as this, especially the phase one of the sidewalk and mitigation system, would you care just to keep us updated over the next few weeks about when that starts and progress with that? Because
Sure.
I'm excited, and I think we'll either be encouraged that it's working, or they'll be going back and making tweaks and adjustments. So we'll see what happens. So, does anyone have any other questions or comments about item 1? We do have a motion and a second for approval, so if there's no further discussion, clerk, please call the roll.
Hartley,
Yes.
Nave, Osborne,
Yes.
Wingard,
Yes.
Farnum,
Yes. The next item is approval of award to SCS Field Services for landfill gas operation, monitoring, and maintenance, bid number SW-23-011. Nobody signed up for public comment, so staff report.
Council, this is a bid. Initially, the city went out to bid for operation and maintenance services back in December of 2019. We entered into an agreement with SCS in January of 20 to take care of the operation, monitoring, and maintenance of the landfill. This bid here is just, it was time for a rebid, and based on the projects we have going on at the landfill, we needed a contract and a bid that encompassed all the extra issues that we were facing at the landfill. So this invitation for bid for the Bristol Integrated Solid Waste Management Facility landfill gas operation, monitoring, and maintenance services bid number SW-23-011, was issued on November 17th with proposals due at 2 p.m. on December 1 of 2022. One response was received. The bid was considered responsive. Therefore, it is recommended by the city manager, procurement specialist, and public works director that bid SW-23-011 be awarded to SCS Field Services. The cost for task 1 is $66,000 per month. The cost for tasks 2 and 3 is dependent upon a time and materials basis according to SCS Field Services' current fee schedule, which was included in the response. I would recommend the City Council approve the award and give the city manager the authority to negotiate and enter into a contract with SCS Field Services for the landfill gas operation, monitoring, and maintenance.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the council?
I move for approval of bid SW-23-011, SCS Field Service, landfill gas operation, monitoring, and maintenance.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions?
So this is a rebid?
Yes, we did this bid back in 2019. At that time, it encompassed the gas wells that were currently in the landfill at that time. Dealt with the monitoring of the leachate and all the other monitoring that is required at the landfill. This is just a rebid of that, plus it encompasses all the other projects that are going on at the landfill as well that need to be monitored and maintained as we continue to move forward.
And how long? Well, you haven't entered into the contract. so you
It'll
don't
be a
know.
3-year contract.
3 year with option to renew or just 3 years?
It'll have an option to renew, but I think it's prudent for the city to always go out for bid and just get, bids from other vendors. Unfortunately, this is the only bid that we received for this project, and, it may be for the foreseeable future. We only have one bid based on our current situation with federal litigation and the issues associated with the landfill.
So, one, did the cost dramatically increase?
Yes.
What was it previous?
We had budgeted roughly $360,000 previously. This will take us close to $800,000 a year.
So that's due to the increased scope of work?
And due to the increased scope of work, we'll have a team of 3 people on site from SCS 5 days a week.
So a lot of this is the monitoring. At the end of the day, I know we've had notice of violation for not completing reports and stuff on time. Are they just collecting the data and then it's up to city staff to make sure that data is submitted to DEQ, or is SCS responsible for submitting that?
SCS has been submitting the data to DEQ over the past, year, Joey, is that right? Ultimately, it's on the city to make sure it gets submitted timely, but SCS is preparing all the reports and making sure the reports are in line with what's required, and then the city has to sign off on it. I sign off on those reports, and we get those submitted.
So what kind of, or if not, I hope you'd include some kind of enforcement mechanism in the contract and agreement that if they don't do this, there's penalties or something to make sure that we no longer have these notice of violation for reports being late or inaccurate or whatever. I mean, those are easy things that should be done, and it really hurts the city and the public because they don't it erodes trust in what we're doing up
Right.
there. And so, you know, if they're the ones collecting the data and it's up to them to provide it, then we need to make sure they're doing that, and as much as we can, put something in there to,
As we negotiate that contract, we'll put some safeguards in place.
okay. Thank you.
If there's no other further discussion or questions, we do have a motion and a second for approval of item 2. So clerk, please call the roll.
Hartley,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Wingard,
Yes.
Farnum.
Yes. Okay. That's the last item of our agenda. If there's no further business, we stand adjourned.